Good day, fellow deal makers. On this episode of the Deal Scout, we're going to have a conversation with Mr. Jake, who's, I believe, on the West Coast, and we're going to be talking about real estate and private equity and all sorts of cool stuff. And that really awesome photo. He has this really awesome picture in the background. It's amazing. Jake, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Josh. It's awesome to be on the show.
Yeah, man. All right. So, Jake, why don't you give us an idea of who you are and what kind of deal maker are you?
Yeah, so I get asked that question a lot. Who am I? I play a lot of different roles, wear a lot of different hats in these different capacities. Now today I am a father, a husband, but more that significant to the podcast is I am a founder and managing partner of a private equity real estate company that primarily invest in commercial real estate. In a past life, we flipped a lot of houses. We did 1,200 flips in 23 states and aggregated some single-family rental portfolios, sold those off to Blackstone or Invitation Homes, Colony Capital, Tricon, and several of the other big groups. And so now, 20 years into being a professional investor, I've learned a few things, made lots of mistakes, and so I'm able to kind of illuminate the path a little bit more for people that are looking to get started in the commercial real estate world.
Awesome, man. All right. So, aggregating portfolios, pulling together these property management companies, selling them to the big names like um, Blackstone or is it BlackRock? BlackRock. I always get those confused.
So, interesting story. Blackstone funded BlackRock
Yeah.
initially. So Steve Schwartzman started BlackRock as well. He started Blackstone. BlackRock was an affiliate, and then they broke off because they couldn't, see appropriately. But essentially, they are birthed from the same vision. BlackRock is not who we dealt with. We dealt with Blackstone, which was Invitation Homes. Blackstone is the largest private equity group in the world. BlackRock manages trillions of dollars primarily on institutional sovereign wealth funds that are trading stocks. But now, when you have that much money, you kind of do everything.
You make the rules. You buy the whatever you want, right?
Yep.
So, Jake, how did you get into fix and flips, and then get into the point where you guys have done 1,200? That's a lot.
Yeah. It sounds like a lot. It is a lot of work. And really where I like to start is there's a point. I read a book, Rich Dad Poor Dad,
Hmm.
getting out of the army. I set a goal of being a millionaire before 30, and so I was going to do that through real estate. But really, where I see, and especially getting to that 1,200 plus houses in 23 states, was there was a moment in my life where I was sitting on a street corner down in Tucson, down the street from the University of Arizona. I was working on this Adobe house as a contractor, and I was just absolutely broken as an individual, physically tired, emotionally tired, wrecked, guts, broken heart, and I was crying, sobbing, and praying, "Dear Lord, can I be worth nothing? That would be awesome. Can I have zero? Zero, like nothing." And so the reason I like to talk about that is because I had to set this goal of becoming a millionaire, and I'd achieved that. I became a millionaire before 30 years old. And this moment in my life was on the downside of that. I'm sitting there. I now have properties that are worth less than I owe on them. So I have a negative net worth. The subprime meltdown was happening. It was devolving as far as from the valuations. I was coming to closing table and buying down or out of the mortgages. It started at 25,000, then 50, and then 75, and then 100. And then as I'm trying to unwind this portfolio and selling these assets, I ran out of money before I ran out of properties. And so I'm doing work on this house in Tucson. And the story actually gets kind of worse at least for me and my being worth negative net worth, wishing to be worth nothing. Well, what it was is I was doing work for the boyfriend of my ex. The girl I thought I was going to marry, we'd broken up during this time period. Part of it, and most significantly, is because I was kind of in a miserable kind of place. My brothers told me I was an asshole. Just I was so myopically focused on achieving this goal of becoming a millionaire before 30 that I kind of really pushed away all other aspects. And to the demise of a relationship, the girl I thought I was going to marry, we broke up. She felt bad for me seeing the spiral that I had. She suggested to the boyfriend that she was dating that I could go do the work because I knew construction and I could fix up the house. And I was so desperate for money. And this is relatively fresh breakup. And it was that emotional, like just crushing of seeing them walk up to the house and walk through and point out and do this and do that. He doesn't know our previous relationship. And so I'm there just getting like rawness of a heartbreak on top of the combined worst financial thing that I can possibly imagine. I've lost friends, families, money, or at least I'm trying to keep that from at bay. I've watched everything that I've worked and built up for over the last decade be eviscerated and turned into nothing. And I'm doing this work because I have no other options in putting myself in this emotional place, crying to be worth nothing. Hmm. And so what that did is, and it was one of the best things that ever happened to me. And the reason is that as I had to bounce around on the bottom and rock bottom, I was able to systematically start building a foundation for what was going to be those 1,200 houses, what was going to be flipping and doing real estate nationwide. And I had to figure out, like, what are the things that I do really well? What are the things I'm not good at? And I use this as goals are great for one-time success. Systems are for those that want repeatable and predictable success. So I had a goal of being a millionaire before 30, and I achieved it, and then I kind of just stopped. I didn't evolve to what is that skill set, what are the systems that I need to put in place to maintain that millionaire status? What do I need to evolve to in that 2.0 or 3.0 version of myself? And I just didn't have those. I was too young. I was not around the right people. And so then I needed to go through some of those trial and error lessons to build and start systematically building back, the things that have now taken me in the last 10, 12 years to new levels.
Dude, I appreciate you sharing that. That's tough for guys sometimes to go like, hey, I was dealing with emotional stuff. I was crying. I was asking God to let me just get back to zero because right now I'm negative, right? I've been there. Like that's tough for a guy to talk about that. So man, I applaud you for that. And I also stand and salute you for, the time you spent in the military. Thank you for you and for all our frontline workers, military, police, fire. Love you guys. What you do in the Army, by the way?
Air assault infantry.
Okay. What's that?
So we would, technically they said you go rappel out of helicopters, but really we just walked around a lot and carried a lot of heavy stuff and pretended. My unit did deploy just as I was getting out. They went, I had some people that were killed over in Iraq, deployed to Kuwait, did some things like that. But, infantry stuff, you shot at the enemy, you walked around, did stuff. We prepared for that for a lot of years. I was actually in between conflicts. So I was getting out just as the, kind of desert, next iteration, the Iraq Freedom War was kicking off. I don't know. I think there's some of that where you feel like, well, I didn't really go to war, so did I actually do anything? But then I also and lost some people that were, under me, trained with me, friends, other things like that. And it's like, that was just not my path, and obviously as a father and a husband and some things like that, you don't have to go experience some of those things to take some value from them.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate you signing up. I appreciate you diving into it, and I value what you did, man. When you were sitting on the curb, construction, tool belt on, crying, seeing your girlfriend drive up with, or ex girlfriend drive up with new dude, right? Emotionally a wreck. How in the world did you start pulling out of that? Because I believe behind every deal maker, behind every good deal maker, man, there's a painful story that at one point you got a fork in the road and you had to make a decision. How did you get out of that funk, man?
It's a journey. It is not an instantaneous thing. It took me many years, and really it's still a journey that I'm on today. And so for me, leverage, and I say leverage in not the sense that you're typically thinking, the leverage of mortgages or financial, but leveraging other people's knowledge, other people's path, and I told you this a little bit earlier. This is like, I just wasn't around other people that were doing the things that I was doing. And so it started first for me was another book. It was Tim Ferriss's 4-Hour Work Week had just come out, and it was in
Yeah.
bookstores. And I didn't even have the money to really go buy the book on the thing. So I would walk to the bookstore. I would read it in the cafe. This is back when there was bookstores. You didn't order stuff online.
Yeah.
You just actually had a physical bookstore. I'd walk there to read. It was Barnes & Noble or Borders. I don't remember which one. And you'd read through, and I'd set it back on the thing, and then the next day. And I read through in the course of a week or 2 weeks or whatever it was, Tim Ferriss's 4-Hour Work Week. And for those that are not familiar with it, you absolutely need to read it, but it's not about working 4 hours in a work week. It's about how do you 10x? How do you leverage everything in your life? And so that started the foundational component of what is it that I do well? What did I do well when I acquired these properties before? Where did I miss out and fail? Obviously, there was a very global systemic issue with the economic structure, but there were signs of it. And I mean, I'd met Robert Kiyosaki. I'd spent some time in Arizona, because this is when I was down in Phoenix, at his studio, and he was saying, be wary, young man. Taking 105% loans is not always smart, or going super high leverage, and negative cash flow. Don't have those. I was like, man, I am so smart. You don't know what you're talking about. I'm clever. I figured out I'm buying stuff at a discount under market value. So the market would even have to go down more than 20% before I ever lost money. Well, it went down, I think, like 80%. So he was right. I was wrong. And so using leverage of other people's wisdom, and I really, really believe that books are by far and away one of the best hacks in which you can do to leverage people's knowledge, because a book is 10 or 20 years worth of someone's experiences condensed down into a 3 or 4 hour window of time. Podcasts are great. Video and YouTube, Instagram, instantaneous kind of little quick hits. But if you want to really go deep, go read books and leverage other people's knowledge and wealth. And then what you can do, and for me, that was exactly the stick by stick, the building of the foundation of the next iteration of who I was going to be. And I was really bankrupt in every aspect of my life. I was 75, 80 pounds overweight. I was, like I said, my brother said, Jake, you're an asshole. I was not doing or taking vacations. I was not doing stuff. And so because I was so myopically focused on this and least importantly, money. And so when I looked at it, and finally that paradigm of money being removed and have negative net worth, it was like money is maybe 1/5 of what your life is made up as. 20%. Money is the fuel in which helps the engine go in society and as a whole. But how are you with your friends and family? How are you with your own self-development? How are you with your health? And there's so many people that I know, successful and wealthy people, that now have a health issue, have a divorce, have a relationship thing, would almost give any amount of money. Hey, Josh, you're going to die in a week, or give me all your money. Like, super easy decision. Done. Here you go. I'll start over at zero, no problem. And so then it was like, why am I ignoring all these other aspects of my life? And that's where I started building. And then again, this is a journey and a process and systemizing of how do I hack myself?
Systemizing your own success. All right, so love this. So you mentioned books, and now I agree with you. Tim, if you're listening, I totally forgot about your book, man. That was one of the best books about life hacking, right? Because I think everybody's read Rich Dad Poor Dad, right? The quadrants and such like that. Like so good, entrepreneurial like mindset, like blown, right? Like hey, own your business, work on the business, not in the like just super smart stuff. I forgot all about Tim's book, The 4 Hour Work Week, and it wasn't. Now some of my friends read it because they just wanted to be complete, bums and live on the beach and only work 4 hours. But like what I gained from it is like, how do I maximize my output? So if I'm working 60 hours a week or 50 hours a week, man, I'm putting in X output, right? Great book, great recommendation. So you mentioned leveraging other people's wisdom, and you mentioned books as building a systemized foundation for success, right? That might be the title of today's episode. Um, what other things, because you started creating a system for your own success and your own foundation, what other things for a deal maker do you need to have in place?
So I did write a book about this and during COVID. And so
Nice.
not as to the clarity that I have now. So it came out last year. Um, Catching Knives, a guide to
Nice.
investing in distressed commercial real estate. So I thought there was a distress. I thought real estate values were gonna like crash, and I'm really good at buying distressed assets, like going to foreclosure, doing all the title research, doing all these things. Like I'm really good at that, and I have a lot of systems related. And I was like, yes, this is my time in the sun. It's gonna happen. There's a pandemic, and then real estate values tripled. And then I was like, wait a minute. But the fundamentals in that book are about putting together systems, leveraging teams, and I use that word leverage again because it's a very critical component. Is I have been a professional real estate investor now for 20 years, ups, downs, left, right, and I went back to school. I got a master's degree in international real estate and finance. I have a broker's license in California. I've done thousands and thousands of transactions, hundreds of millions of dollars of real estate, and 20 years of experience. And I was like, it just reveals to me how little I actually know and how vast the knowledge is in the commercial real estate world. And so when I look at this is I started putting together things like due diligence checklist, a due diligence checklist on a property. And so why, and people ask me like, Jake, you've been doing this for 20 years, you've done all the things. I go, it's the same reason that a pilot or a surgeon uses a checklist, because the downside risk is your plane crashes and you kill hundreds of people, or something goes terribly wrong and somebody dies on the operating table. And I'm not saying that you're going to die if you have a bad, commercial deal. You may feel like it. You may, jeopardize. And obviously, I have that emotional, reminder of what it was like when deals were going bad. And so it is as stressful as anything, even as death. And so I go, that's why I use a checklist. And then I assemble a team. And so I have real estate attorneys that are really, really good at reviewing leases and reviewing contracts and doing those other things that give me highlights. Same thing as a broker in that local market, an inspector that's inspecting the mechanicals of a particular building. The lab works that are doing environmental studies, pulling up. And so what is critical to things like that is oftentimes people think when you get into commercial real estate, it's just about finding a good deal or here's the cash flows. It's a buyer beware environment. It is a dog eat dog, or it's a shark tank of activity. And what I mean by that is there's a lot of disclosures in the residential world. Did you know about this? Did you know about that? Did you check on lead paint? Is there asbestos? Is there other things? And sometimes people think, wow, look, this property sold for $5 million. Now I can buy it for $1 million. That's a good deal. Theoretically, that could be a good deal. But what if there's a dry cleaner there? What if they were using chemicals that are now contaminated the soil? What if the neighboring property was using something and you have, shallow groundwater, and they have now contaminated, and now it's your site has been contaminated? Previously, it was $5 million. Nobody checked on that. Somebody's willing to give you that property for a very seller finance, creative carry, something like that. You do testing on that. And here's the big thing about environmentals. Whoever owns that property is responsible for it. Even if the previous person did it, you're responsible. And that might be a multi-million-dollar cleanup and take you 10 years. And so now you go, wow, I got a really great deal. I got a free piece of land. Isn't it a great deal? It used to be $5 million. Now I got it for free, or for $1 million, or whatever the cost it is. But you'd be like, oh, by the way, you didn't bother checking that there's $20 million of environmental cleanup.
Whew.
And you can't sell it until that is done. And then you have to put monitoring wells. And you know what? It's going to take you 10 years to clean up that, to get the right attenuation of the soil conditions with that contamination before it's even something that can be, sold. And you'd be like, is that a good deal? I don't know. I mean, can you hold it for 10 years? Is the land worth $100 million once you clean that up? Maybe, I don't know. And so that's where some of the things is like these checklists at least reveal, and you can understand the risk that are associated with each one of these elements, and then take a calculated risk as far as moving forward.
Yeah, having checklists are so important, so valuable. Systems processes are something that I have a weakness in, right? I'm a visionary, right? If you look at EOS, if you look at Traction, if you look at eMyth Revisited, I'm the guy, far side of the coin, creative, visionary guy. Get me sitting down and start documenting processes, systems, checklists. I'm passing out, jumping out of a window. Like it's really tough. So you mentioned teams. So if I have that general weakness, I know that. Put me on a sales call, put me on a podcast, put me on a show, throw me up on stage, give me a knife, and I'll figure it out, right? How do you outsource, or how do you guard up your weaknesses like I have?
I'm very similar to you as far as very strong visionary, very strong. And once I've kind of assembled the deal and it's started and it's going, it's not my jam anymore. Like,
Yeah.
you guys go handle that. The integrators that go handle that, like, do those, put together a system. So these are the same things that I'm trying to hack myself. Exactly as you just identified, it's figure out where your strengths are, where are the things that you're very good, and then systematically build out the places that you need. If you're a contractor, you probably don't necessarily need a contractor on your team. And so again, what and where you need is very, very, unique to who you are. Where are your unique strengths? I have some friends, they love organizing, doing those spreadsheets, doing, calling. They need help with the vision. They need help with, someone leading and going those next steps. So it's like, okay, how can you map out what it is that you want? And I think figuring out your own uniqueness, the goals in which you want to achieve, allow you to start creating the systems. And then you can see even within those systems of what is lacking to get you to where you want to go. And so when you look at that, is sometimes that might be an integrator. Sometimes that may be a contractor, an attorney, or whoever else. And these don't always cost money.
Mm-hmm.
And so those are some of the other things. People may want equity in the deal. People may want the job, as far as a contractor will come out and look at a job and give you an evaluation of here's what's wrong, here's what's not wrong, here's how I would do it. If I only had $1 million, this is what I would do to the property. They want the job. So that doesn't necessarily cost you money. And so I'll give you an interesting story. I know we're maybe getting tight on time, but every limitation is a self-limitation. And I'll tell you this, and here's this example of this story that hit me over the head like a 2x4. And a 2x4 is a big piece of wood, for those that don't know that. It's like a baseball bat. I was down in Miami and said I went back to school, and I got a degree in international real estate down in Miami. And I met this young kid, and I say young kid, he's probably late 20s, 28. And he was just finishing up this super cool project. And I have an aspiration to build a skyrise, a high rise, big building, doing the things. And I've been telling, well, when I get this level and I do this many deals and I have this level of success, then I'll get the permission to go build a high rise. And I just saw this young kid, and he just finished this building, and he made $30 million profit off of it. Wow. 32-story condo project. And I was like, tell me more. Like, how'd you do this? Like, is your dad, in the industry? Did you work for a big institutional company? Like, how does someone that's 28 years old go do this project? You have a lot of money? Like, I was like, maybe that's, to me, that was like, oh, maybe he's just got a lot of money and you can go. He's like, no, I just came to this country 3 years ago from Venezuela. I had nothing. I've never done anything in real estate. I've never worked for a company that's done real estate or finance. I came to this country because it was an opportunity. There was land that was listed on LoopNet, or maybe it was just a sign. I just saw it listed, and they said it's $10 million. And I said, great, let's put it in contract. And then there was an architect and a contractor down the street that were building another kind of thing that I was like, I would like to do that. And I went and talked to them, and I said, hey, I want to build one of those over here on this lot. Could you do that? And they said, yeah, we can do that. And this is what it would cost for the plans, and this is what it would cost to build it. And he was like, oh, that's amazing. The broker, they were talking to the agents, were like, we're selling those condos, and we have a lot of demand, and we're sold out. We could do the sales for yours as well. And so he was like, great, that sounds fantastic. And so then he got a sales team put together that started working on the sales. He had the contractor that said it was going to be $70 million to build out this build. The architect said it was going to be this. And then collectively, he just kind of walked around the streets in Miami and went to events and said, hey, I'm doing this project, and I'm going to need some investors and to get through the next steps. And so some people said, oh, I'll put the $1 million up to be part of that, to get your plans finished and get the permits approved. And then by that time, they'd sold 50 or 75% of the condos already. And then, of course, the bank was like, we don't actually care what your finances are. It's based on all the people that are going to buy this. And then in that time period, he'd sold out the condos, started construction, built out a 35-story building with no money, no experience, nothing, other than just coming and doing it and having action. And so that hit me, and I was just like, what the hell? Like, simply taking action and not having limiting beliefs. And to me, that was like, oh my gosh, that guy just literally came to this country with nothing and said, hey, here's an opportunity. This is the land of opportunity. You just got to go work for it and do it. He didn't do a market research on what the land was worth. He didn't do comps on what things were going to sell for. It's 70 million. I'm selling it for 120. He just simply did that. He happened to be in a very fortuitous time of the economic recovery process that was all up, and really in the last 10 years, everything in the economy has been up and to the right. And so he had and created these levels of success just by simply doing it.
Have you ever been humbled, like immediately humbled? Like, yeah, here I am, man. I've gone to school. I've spent so much time working, struggled. I've made money, lost money, been in venture capital, private equity, lost money, been bankrupt, been on food stamps, and I'm like, well, and I look at a success and I go, man, that guy probably had money. His parents were probably successful. Then you hear a story like that, and I just go humbled. Like this kid, right, 28 years old, is awesome. He took action.
Someone is doing what you dream of doing with less
Hmm.
just because they simply are doing it.
Ah, dude, so convicting, so humbling. Like I find myself making excuses and giving myself self-limiting beliefs. That's why I love this show. That's why I love doing podcast shows so I can learn and grow from other people's screw ups and other stories. And that's, I love sharing these stories so that collectively we can learn and grow in wisdom together. Jake, when you saw this 28-year-old guy and you're like, you're waiting for your own permission to be successful, right? I'll be successful when I build a skyrise. Here's a 28-year-old guy just flew into the States not too long ago. Boom, he did it. 32 million bucks in his pocket. How did you take it and what did you do after that?
It really rocked me as far as where I questioned a little bit of everything, of how many of my own beliefs were my nature, my nurture, my growing up, my what was I confirming in my own beliefs that were holding me back.
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't instantaneous as far as like, okay, I'm building a skyscraper tomorrow, because that's not how I work. And as far as what was unique and special for him is and I take calculated risk, as I am someone that is moving you know in a pragmatic way. So to me, just going in and say, I'm buying anything on the market and let's go do this. And maybe that could have been successful, but that would have been outside of who I was. And so when I looked at that I then began to question everything about some of these bias that I had, these belief systems. And then it opened up the aperture to like what else is possible in my life. And really it came to the next principle to me, and this is part of that journey, is everything in life in the physical world is a construct of imagination. Where you are sitting right now, I don't know if it's a house, an office, a building, whatever it is, where you're sitting, someone imagined it. They thought of it. The physical world is a manifestation of people's imagination. Someone sat down in my building. It's old. It was built in 1920s. Used to be the Bank of Italy before it became the Bank of America. And there was someone that stood there and said, you know what, on that corner, it'd be awesome to put a building. And I think it should be about this tall and about this wide, and it should be this and made out of concrete and doing these other things. And then he got, I'm assuming it's a he, maybe it was a she, but got a architect and a builder and somebody else, and collectively got them to buy into that vision of their imagination. And then they were able to just create through a vision and imagine and create their physical environment. And that's what I mean by systemizing. And you are the architect of your own life, including not just your head, but then the physical aspect and manifestation of what you want into this world. And so to me, that was just like, wow, look at this. I can go do anything. Everything, the roads that are put in, the buildings that have been built out there, what you're going to do, your life, your relationships, your marriage, like all of these things, you have so much more control to really manifest your own reality. And so that was like, to me, that unlocking of the moment of questioning my own limitations was, and it was elevating my mindset to another plane.
All right, so you and I go back in time. The Jake is sitting on the corner crying. He's got his tool belt on. He's listening to to some what time frame was this? 2007 probably, right?
2007, 2008, right
Yeah.
around there.
Yeah. All right. So down in the dumps, you're seeing your girlfriend, ex-girlfriend pull up with I don't mean to bring her up so much. I don't know why I'm bringing her up so much. But anyways, we're painting the picture here, right?
Sure.
So you and I get to go have a chat with that Jake on the corner. We go, "Hey, bro, here's a bottle of water. Let's chat for a second." And you just share what you just shared now to that younger Jake. Would that younger Jake listen? Would he call you crazy? What would he say? How would he respond?
I don't know if I could have heard it at that time.
Yeah.
I don't know if I would have been able to be receptive of that message. Here's one of the other things. I was actually just talking to my wife about this morning. Is everyone that I've ever met, successful, especially even the more successful, battle a certain element of imposter syndrome. If people only knew, like they would, oh my gosh, at any moment it's going to be revealed. And so a couple
Yeah.
of weeks ago, something was shared to me. I was actually I joined another mastermind group and collectively working on my own personal brand, writing a book, launching a podcast, doing
Yep.
some other things. I started teaching people due diligence and courses on how to invest into commercial real estate and taking these calculated risks. And it's a little bit like I keep looking over my shoulder, like, I don't know, like, why are these people asking me this? Hey, can you coach me, Jake? And I'm like, I mean, I guess I don't know. And so here is the thing that I was told that really, really unlocked something for me. Was there certain people that can only hear a message from you? You are on a certain frequency level. Think of it as a radio station, you think of it as whatever. Like they can only hear you. And so when I'm regurgitating information that Tony Robbins said or Tim Ferriss says or somebody, James Clear said in Atomic Habits, like I feel like, man, this is not my original idea. I'm just regurgitating whatever this person said. And so that's what a lot of it had to do with me feeling like an imposter is like, these are not original ideas. And because I'm not original or I'm just regurgitating this information, that's why as soon as they go read, whatever, Tony Robbins books or these other things, they're gonna be like, aha, Jake's a fraud. And so it was like, he didn't actually come up with this process. And so it was like, you can play the same radio station, the same song on different parts of the country, but you're tuned into different frequencies. And to me, it actually translated to something else. Some people can't hear Tony Robbins. They're not going to pay for his event. They don't like tall people. They don't like the celebrities. They had some negative, a childhood bully was named Tony. And they're like, whatever it is, like they cannot hear the message from Tony Robbins. And so when I am regurgitating some of those things that I've assembled together from different pieces of collective wisdom, they can hear it from me because they can relate to me or they know me or whatever. And so what it is like, I am just a vessel for this information that is passing through me, And if I am not sharing these out into the world, I'm actually bottling in the light and the energy that is flowing through me. And so when I'm bottling that in, I am actually doing a disservice to everyone that's around me that can hear my voice. And so to me, it is like not about what is the message. Are you an imposter? No, you're just a vessel. You're a conduit for God, the universe, for higher powers of putting a message through you out into the world. And don't hold your light back and the light that's shining through you to others because they need to hear it and they can only hear it. And to add to it even more clarifying the moment was as a parent. I can see this real time because I can tell my kids these things, don't do this, don't do that, do that. Literally anyone else comes in and says, hey, go pick up that, do those things. Instantaneously, they hear them, they cut through and they go do that. So I was like, oh, wow, that's true. And so there's almost 8 billion people on this planet, and there's going to be some people that resonate and hear what I say, and some people are not going to be able to hear what Josh says or Tony Robbins or Tim Ferriss or anybody else, but they can hear what you can say or they can hear what I can say, and that's it.
Hey, I forgot to hit record. We might? No, I'm just kidding.
I'll do it over. Let's do this. I'm game.
Bro, you were like on fire, man. This is so cool watching you guys. So, our audience it might be listening into just the audio portion of this. We're going to put this on the YouTube channel. So we're starting to post our videos on YouTube. You need to watch this guy while he's talking about this. Like he is on fire. Like you believe this stuff. What I love about this is if we had that conversation with your younger self, you're like, I don't know if he would hear that. Me too. right? I've had all the wise people. God's blessing on my life. I know a lot of people, super successful people, know people, and they gave me advice that I'm looking back and going, man, I just didn't hear it. They were telling it, not frequency, not hitting. For me, ego, massive ego, blocking frequency, blocking energy, blocking it out. That destroyed, I mean, oh my gosh, it feels like a couple decades worth of productivity. What do you think was your block? Mine was ego, massive ego. What was yours?
I mean, I'd say that's a significant portion of it. And I love Ryan Holiday's Ego is the Enemy.
So good. I like
And as
Ryan.
far as some of that unlocking of that stoicism of understanding, evolving. And so I needed to evolve on who I was. Sometimes that is through age. Some of that is just experiencing a little bit more. And then also kind of the understanding is, to me, I was in such a rush, in such a hurry to get all of these things done.
Yeah.
I think there's a couple different things that I went and unlocked in that process, in this journey, and I'm still unlocking. Like, I have not discovered everything and all the secrets to the known universe,
Yeah.
and everything's amazing. So I'd say there's a couple of elements of it. One, nothing is positive or negative. It is whatever you decide it to be.
Okay.
And so Napoleon Hill wrote Outwitting the Devil. And it didn't
Yeah.
actually come out until, in the last maybe 20 years or so. And Outwitting the Devil is everything in the universe is balanced, positive and negative. Electrons, if something is out of balance, it chaotically, rams into stuff and until it gets balance. And so when you look at that, there's God and the devil. There's balance and equal elements in everything. And so everything that exists in your life is both positive and negative, or neither positive or negative. It is how you see and your mindset and the lens in which you see those things. And so then you can just change your mind of how you see them. This happened for me, not to me.
Yeah.
This is the positive of this situation. And so that has been a mental process. And I'm, again, not saying that I'm 100% on this. It is a journey. But then how do I evolve? What is the best version of myself? What and how would I look at this in the best version, and trying to even create little elements of, before I go into the house
Yeah.
and I'm in this next role, what would the best version of myself do in this situation? Maybe I got, crap I had to deal with at work. Maybe I had, even from call to call, even from meeting to meeting. And it's like, for me, that process of what would the best version of myself look like, and really what I aspire to be, creating that as the framework of the starting. What is the positive that I can bring in? And it creates this contagious like energy. And so I feel that. And so when I think of myself as how do I bring that higher energy to others that uplifts them and creates them and leans them to the positive side of things, is that's where my superpower aligns. And then thinking of it in a very long-term nature is I plan on living another 100 years. And then I go, well, if I'm going to live another 100 years, I have the long-term game to be playing at this. And so I don't necessarily have to do everything today and all at once. And I can start building systems and process. And so obstacle is the enemy, or ego is the enemy, and then obstacle is the way.
Yeah.
Is life is a constant uphill battle. Like there is no plateau and then it becomes easy. And you're going to go up the full duration of your life. There is never going to be a time that it is easier. Not next quarter, not month. Never will it be easier in your life. You will get better at certain tasks, but it's still going to be hard. You have $100 million, life is still hard. You have $1 billion, life is still hard. And so when you look at that, there is no easy aha moment. It is going to be a constant uphill battle. It is a long, long journey. And then for me, I have just put in there 100 years with now an option to renew. That was Mark Victor Hansen shared that little tidbit with me. I was at dinner with him. He's like, you got to add with an option to renew. And then how do I lean and tilt and create the lens and framework of mindset that everything then becomes positive and I become a positive force for all of those around me. And so when I say that, it's like I was not evolved enough as a person mentally or mindset to be able to hear or process any of those things. And it's not until you start moving up that hierarchical understanding of your own mind that you actually can receive those messages. It's being on that wrong radio station. You're 93.2 and it's playing at 101.1, you know, and it's like, so you cannot receive that message, but there are little snippets of information that stick in that become evolving of you. And then you're going to be able to understand that message 10 years later when you're on that level.
Yeah.
And when somebody gave you that piece of advice and you're like, oh yeah, that makes sense now, it is added to the snowball effect of who you are as a person that is creating and evolving daily.
Yeah, man. So good. You know what's cool? This is a show for deals. We haven't really talked much about deals. I find this. First of all, I believe that people do business and deals with people they know, like, and trust, right? You get to choose who you deal with most of the time, right? Unless you're on the receiving end and you just got to submit, then it's really not a great deal. But I believe that we get to choose. And on this show, the Deal Scout, we're not only searching for deals, we're searching for cool people that we want to do deals with, right? I believe in everything. Everything I do is partnerships and syndication, right? What I love about our conversation today, for me, it's been such a challenge for me, is to the growth mindset, the mindset to destroy my own self-limiting beliefs. I was sitting in an investor meeting the other day, and they said no, and they challenged my belief, and they go, "You are actually great at that," and they challenged me, and I was like, "Oh man, what's going on between my two ears is limiting my success." How do you break through self-limiting beliefs? Like, what is your process? What's your checklist? You like to approach things with checklist and process.
Yeah, I mean, part of it is creating the system that allows you to be optimized for that. So I have morning routines. I work out every single day and have for the last 2.5 years. I get up, I brush my teeth. I drink 20 ounces of lemon, infused water with some Himalayan salt. I go work out for that. I create some of these spaces of those because I know that as an opportunistic and, I'm going to go play whack-a-mole when I get into the office, as I'm going to do that, is so I need to prime myself and optimize even my own environment. I've actually started tracking my sleep in the last maybe 6 months.
Wow.
I read Lifespan with David Sinclair, and then I was at an event with him, and we were kind of working through as like, if I plan on living 100 years, how do I start putting together those systems? Well, I actually need to be sleeping more. And it was, to me, Hal Elrod, knowing him and doing the miracle mornings and kind of getting up and doing savers. And I was like, just get less sleep and I'll get more stuff done. Well, then it was like, well, now actually like 80% of all the, elements that were coming up in my blood work and other things like that were related to not having enough sleep. I have 3 kids. I have an 8-month-old right now. So I was like,
Holy
that's
moly.
also a challenge in general. But it was like, I definitely was not adding to that, watching a screen after a certain time, getting those blue lights, not getting to sleep, not getting, and the being and working out creates all these other things. It physically makes my body it's stronger, but also wanting to reset and go to sleep to recover and then tracking those processes. And so from me, that is how at least I have systematically kind of worked together, is again, hacking myself for my own success. And so I'm trying to optimize my life for the ideal for me. I don't know if that works for other people, because in everyone, what is a good deal for me may be a terrible deal for you. The things that I do in my life may not actually work very well for people. And so again, this is just me discovering of myself. And so the discovery of myself is I can do the things that are already inclined into me. And so I'm really stubborn. is I am persistent, and that's my superpower. My wife's like, that's the whole reason that we're together is because you are very persistent. And I was like, I know that. I am a heat-seeking missile. When I am determined on something, I will figure out how to do that. And so it was like, when I say I work every day, that's me being stubborn to myself. Me hacking myself is like, I, without exception, will work out every single day. Torn calf muscle, I don't care. I'm David Goggins is this. I'm going to limp around and drag that leg. I will get crutches. I don't care. I don't make, and that's because I'm stubborn. And it makes it easier for me because that's who I am. Other people, they're like, I need rest. I need relax. I need those other things. And so that's to them. Again, so many people have come to me and said, what's a good deal? What can I invest into? Tell me what's a good deal. Should I get into net lease deals? Should I get into multifamily, industrial, whatever? And I was like, I don't know. It all really, really depends on you, because I just said, what is a good deal for you? Maybe a bad deal for me. I, right now, am leaning heavy into hospitality. I love hospitality. I think there's a real macro shift happening in this country that is going to unlock roadside hotels and motels. And we're putting together a fund, and we're going to go buy tens of millions and hundreds of millions of dollars of roadside motels and hotels. And we're really excited about that. Someone else I talked to, they're like, everything about that freaks me out. I don't like hospitality. I don't like the interaction of in and out of people. I don't like the business aspect. And they're like, I'm really excited about an industrial building that I never have to talk to the tenant. So to me, I'm really interested in that. To them, that sounds like the worst thing. And then so they're going to have to emotionally and bring up their energy level to try to do that, and it's going to be a negative. It's going to take away from them, whereas to me, it's a positive. It's filling, and it gives me more energy to do those things. And that's why I start talking about is figuring out yourself. Then you can start hacking in is what is it that you truly want to do. Optimize your life. Where do you want to go? Alice in Wonderland, when they asked the Mad Hatter, he asked her, which way do you want to go? And she's like, I don't know. And he's like, then it doesn't matter which direction you go. And so I go back to that is like, you have to first define which way you want to go, where you want to go, and doesn't even pick a direction. Just randomly like, I'm doing retail strip centers. Cool, go do it. You don't have to do that for the rest of your life. You may find out that you hate that, but at least you have some specificity of a direction in which you're going, and then you can start building a system related to that.
I smell another book in route, right? So catching knives was your first book, and
Yes.
I like how when you were sharing like, hey, I wrote this and I was predicting the market, and boy, was I wrong, man. The market's tripled in price, quadrupled in price. Like the fundamentals are there. Maybe timing will improve, but like I smell another book about energy and self-limiting beliefs and all this stuff. Do I see that on the horizon with you?
So we're thinking at it, and actually, I was talking about, I had in my head these other clever titles related
Yeah.
up, and they're like, stop being clever, get more clarity around that title.
Yeah.
And so I was actually, and maybe I'll actually premiere on your show the thought process, and one of them that I'm trying to figure out, and I'm kind of working on, so working title right now is Buy Happiness.
You go back
So the reason,
before this goes live. You better go buy that domain.
Buy Happiness. And so, I don't know if you've heard this. It seems like a pretty common saying to me, but they said, money can't buy you happiness, said every poor person. Rich people, wealthy people don't usually say that.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that you having wealth or money translates to you being happy, but there are a lot of systems that you can put in place that free up your time to allow you more space and opportunity to do the things that do make you happy. And so when I look at that is like, maybe you love paying bills. Maybe you don't. And I go, well, is there a way to buy paying those bills? Is there systems you can put in and invest into? And then how do you get, and really this and translates to me as financial freedom, because it is such a significant mechanism of your life. You don't have to be a millionaire, but I believe that you should achieve financial freedom, and you can buy that, and that gives you the time to live your higher, better purpose. And that might be, and it's not your own self-actualization, it is you evolving to serving others. You evolving, and because there's unlimited happiness in when you are doing the thing that you are specifically in your purpose that you are put on this world, and then you're serving other people with through that is unlimited, and that's where that happiness comes from. But you can't do that when you're so far down on the Maslow's hierarchy of needs is you're figuring out how to play the light bill or eat food or doing those other things. And so to buy happiness, you have to achieve financial freedom, and you have to systematically move up the need, and then you can get sometimes, you need to get that bestseller book, or you need to achieve some trophy that gives you permission to then start serving others. But then when you do that, then you can really unlock true happiness.
Super cool. So, Jake, for people who want to connect with you, learn with you, and maybe even be mentored by you and with you, what's a good place for people to connect with you?
Right now, it's catchknives.com. Catch Knives is where we have our, we do a newsletter. You can buy the book through there, The Catching Knives. There's some courses that we teach as well. We're getting, I've had more and more people reach out about some coaching. And so we're actually looking and starting to work together with a system of how we can get some mentoring or some coaching sessions related to the commercial real estate, because that's what I do best and most, but it's creating some of those systems. On Instagram, jake.realestate is where I'm most active. The team manages a lot of my other LinkedIn and other places. And then we're going to continue to expand that branding, and maybe by the time this comes out, it's buy happiness or invest in happiness, or passive wealth or something related to that title. But I agree.
Awesome.
I think there's more out there that I want to share out into the world.
Yeah, man, I feel it. Awesome. Two more questions. One question is, I have a deck of cards with questions on it, so I don't know what this question will be. Tell me when to stop.
Now.
All right, here's the question. When was the last time you saw someone cry? Or when was the last time someone saw you cry? Ooh, I read that wrong. I do this for a living and I can't read.
Someone saw me cry.
Yeah.
So I want to say there's a few moments, and I don't know when time is an interesting thing for me.
Yeah.
Is because there are things that I have experienced a week ago that seems like it was a lifetime ago, things that happened 10, 12 years ago that feel like it was yesterday. And part of this is, there may be, and I believe in a higher power, and I believe that there's God in heaven, and there's a time when, or a space where time doesn't really connect and matter. And so to me, I feel some of that in my own things. Like my wife and my kids, I feel like they've always been a part of my life. And I was waiting for them. And now, even though I have an 8-month-old, I feel like she's always been a part of my life. It was just I hadn't, received that at that point in time, but it always felt like they were part of my life. And I almost don't even remember a time that didn't exist without each individual one of my family members. And so there's two things that I want to say. The last time I cried was the people that I love most, when they will speak down or negatively about themselves, and this is the smarter thing, is I love them so much that it breaks my heart to see them talking about those things, because I love them so much and I see the positive in them. And so when I see them talking down, it upsets me, and it gets me, like, my initial reaction is anger, but really what it is that's that anger is heartbreak. Is I am heartbroken that they think less of themselves, and I love them so much, and I even feel it right now, a little bit of the motion of the twinge of that is like, because I remember some of those moments. And then being a parent is I have also started and tapping into more of a love into this world, and as being a parent, if you like, everything they say about it is absolutely true. It'll change your life, and it's hard and it's challenging, it's amazing. But I also, because I've been more receptive to that, the more kids you have, the more love that exists in this kind of world, is I start feeling things on a love kind of level that I've never felt before. And sometimes it's a song, or someone, and we've had recently someone that had their baby pass away.
Oh, yeah.
And so from one of those things, my
Yeah.
wife is a NICU nurse. That's what she does on, the 4 days a month that she works. She deals with some of those things. I am not very good with coping with that. It breaks my heart. It destroys me, and I can't even sometimes be in that environment. And it can be a little message of sweetness around kids. It can be something around those relating, but when they happen, is I tear up and I feel it. And I sometimes in church, I might feel it from a message that something as I'm feeling convicted or I need to go do something, and I start crying. And I don't know when those times were because they kind of all blend together, but it'd be one of those elements. And when something that is traumatic or sad around kids, the love and the abundance that I'm sad that my kids are getting older, but I'm also happy that they're getting older. It's like this whole weird dichotomy of duality of being a parent. And then when someone else around me doesn't see the light that I see and love in them, and they're degrading that, causes me heartbreak.
Super cool, man. I appreciate you sharing that. Yeah. Last question. What question should I have asked you during this interview that I completely screwed up and did not ask you?
I don't feel like there's anything that you should have asked. I think that you do a fantastic job of the way that the flow of this, extracting out. I don't prepare for these calls. I'm on a handful of them. My wife, it freaks her out that she's like, you don't prepare, you don't think. I was like, literally, I'm just gonna go say what I'm feeling, and I've done enough of them is that I have this foundation of understanding. I can talk about these things in the book or diving into commercial real estate. I have 20 years of experience. But I mean, I don't think this is the path in which this conversation could have taken. When you have a conversation with friends, do you ever go back and be like, oh man, I wish I would have asked them that question or these things, and be like, no, it's the free flowing, and that is where the real juice is you're taking and evolving of that as a conversation in these podcasts. Even though they can be chopped and edited and created, this is what I most like and most resonate with, is when it's 2, 3 or people, whoever, that are connecting on a human to human level. And I don't think there's any other questions you could have asked that could have necessarily changed the direction. And if you did, it would have changed the direction. It would have been fantastic anyway.
Cool, man. I appreciate you. Ladies and gentlemen, fellow deal makers, as always, reach out to our guests, say thank you. If you want to take a look at his book, Catching Knives, or is it Catching Knives or How to Catch Knives?
Catching Knives is the title of the book.
Cool.
Yep. You can get that on Amazon and I don't know, any other physical bookstores. I think it's all digital now.
Awesome.
Catching Knives is the book. The website is Catch Knives.
Got it. So as always, reach out to our guests, find a way to do a deal with them. Take a look at, if you're looking at commercial real estate and you want to take a look at due diligence, if you want to run it by our guests, reach out to them, say thanks for being on the show, find a way to do a deal with them, support them, and follow their work. If you're working on a deal, looking for a deal, or want to talk about a deal here on this show, head on over to thedealscout.com. There's a little microphone in the bottom right-hand corner. You can leave me a message there, or contact button top right, and just leave a quick message and we'll get in touch, and our producer will probably connect with you and maybe get you on the show next. Till then, talk to you all next episode. See you guys.